Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. We are super excited to be doing another Caring Counts live episode. I'll give everyone just a few seconds to jump on here and join us here. While people are jumping on, our goal with these is to connect people in memory care because we believe the more connections you have, the more support you have. Caring Counts is brought to you by Applewood Our House. Today, we are super excited to have Jill Lorenz from Summit Resilience Training. Jill, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Well, hi, I'm pleased to be here. I am such a fan of Applewood.
Good, good. Well, Jill, will you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Of course, I own Summit Resilience Training, which is dementia education for caregivers, specifically with people with Alzheimer's, Lewy body, frontal temporal, and Parkinson's disease. And so I provide classes and educations for families and, anybody that has memory disorders. It could be vascular dementia as well. I provide in-home assessments and I train professionals who work with our loved ones with various dementias.
So you're busy. You keep yourself very busy. That's good.
I am.
That's good. I know. I'm excited to jump in the topic around when we chatted, we were talking about what can a caregiver own and how does that kind of affect the care you give and the behaviors and all the things that go into caring someone with Alzheimer's or dementia. So let's jump right into that. As a caregiver, what can you own?
It's interesting because when we have a diagnosis for one of our loved ones, a friend, or whoever it is, oftentimes we only see the symptoms as part of the disease, not something that we might have some control over. And I often tell people in my classes that if we can look at it from a different standpoint, if we can not just look at whatever symptom is presenting itself to us and think, oh, that's the Alzheimer's or that's the Lewy body or whatever it is, and say, how can I change my trajectory? How can I change my approach when I'm seeing these things happen? And some of the things I want to point out today to help caregivers with that is that I have some absolutes that I like to work with. And one of them, which I think is almost the most important one, is we as caregivers set the emotional tone every time we walk into a room with our loved one with a diagnosis. So what I mean by that is, I know caregivers that are watching this will know this feeling. You walk into a room and the person that you love that has a diagnosis jumps a foot every time you walk in. And you think to yourself, why are they doing that? I live here too. They know I live here. They know I'm here. Well, not necessarily. Their peripheral vision is being zoned in now. They only see basically what's in front of them. And they may not hear you come in the room. They may not understand your serious face when you walk into the room. So I want caregivers to try this technique because you do own some of this. When you walk into a room, make some noise, snap your fingers, hum to a song, sing, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." You walk in and then you can start talking to the person. That gives them a chance to warm up to your presence and for both of you to set a tone that is very positive. So Taylor, as an example, if I walked into the room and I said, "Hey, Taylor, what are you doing?" My face does not say I'm happy. It does not say I'm welcoming. But if I walk in and I say, "Hey, Taylor, are you having a good morning so far? Would you like a cup of coffee?" It changes everything. So we need to look at the fact that we can set that emotional tone every time we walk into someone's space. and start it in a very positive way so that we don't end up having that scared reaction or a concerned reaction. If you're feeling anxiety, they will feel anxiety. If you're feeling happy, they will feel happy. This is something we cannot escape. So if we own that as a caregiver, that will help us enormously when we are wanting a positive reaction. So your act creates a reaction.
Now, Jill, I have a question around this. I can hear the caregivers in a facility or a community or a home, and the family caregivers, wherever you are, if you're caring for someone, whether it be memory care or whatnot, I can hear them say, well, I'm not going to have a good day every day, right?
Right.
So how can I reshape my outlook before I walk into the room, so to speak? And that's very figurative, I think, before you walk into the care of someone.
Absolutely. That's a great question. So I think you could pause to care. Okay. Just use that kind of mindset. Pause for a moment. Say to yourself, I may not be in a good mood, but I can actually make a difference in the way the next 10 minutes are going to go. Okay. So put a smile on your face, even if you don't feel it. When you walk into a room and you smile at somebody, you at least have a better chance of having the rest of the interaction go well. So just pause for a minute. If you have to count to 10, say to yourself, I may not feel happy right now, but I can put a smile on my face if it's going to change the way our interaction is going to transpire. So even if you don't feel that way, we don't always feel that way. We wake up in the morning sometimes and we're depressed or we're blue or here we go again. And, that is true. But that can help you with your own emotional well-being, and it will certainly help the person with whatever type of dementia and memory loss they have.
That's great. That's really good. It reminds me of the metaphor of if your bucket's not full, how can you care for someone else's bucket?
That's so true. That is so true. Yeah.
As we move forward in our Facebook Live, we have a couple of viewers here. If you have a question for Jill, please post it in the chat. We can put it up. We can pose questions as we go through her absolutes of, as a caregiver, what can you own? So Jill, let's move on to the next one. I know you have a few we want to get through today.
I do. So the next one I want to talk about is no doesn't mean no. It means I've forgotten how to do the task you're asking me about. So as an example, I am one of you. I have had many family members that have had some type of dementia, specifically Alzheimer's and Lewy body and frontal temporal. And so I've walked a million miles in your shoes. Okay. So I can give you an example. My mom had many children, 7. So if she didn't want to fold towels, I could certainly understand that. But I would say, Mama, would you like to help me fold some towels? And she would say, no. Now, we've all heard this. Would you like to take a shower? No. Are you hungry? No. Mm-hmm. And so when I would sit down with my mom and say, okay, that's fine, Mom, but sit down right next to me. So I would grab the basket, put it down in front of me, and I would pull out a towel and I would start to fold it. And she would just watch me. And I would fold it and never actually look at her. I would just fold it. And then I would reach in and grab a hand towel and hand it to her, again, not looking at her, and grab another hand towel for myself. And I would start to fold it. And I would look over at her, and she was following me. And she would start to fold it as well. And so I would walk her through the steps of how to fold the towel, and I would give her kudos. Great job, Mom. You did a terrific job. And we would end up folding the rest of the towels. The same thing could happen if you were fixing lunch and you say, are you hungry? And they say no. And so you walk into the kitchen and say, well, come with me, because we know that you are their safety net. You are their safety blanket. They will follow you where you go, especially if you have a smile on your face or they feel the warmth radiating from your body. So they may say, no, they're not hungry, but you walk in, you get a glass and say, well, we've got iced tea, we've got orange juice, we've coffee, whatever it is. Does that sound good? Would you like some coffee? And they may say, yes. Well, while we're in here, how about if I make you some breakfast? Does bacon and eggs sound good? And they may sit down and eat with you. But if you label it, would you like to come in and have lunch or breakfast or whatever it is, they may say no. And I can say this with my classes, and I can say, all of you repeat with me. You ask them a question, and what do they say? No.
No.
So remember, no doesn't mean no. No means I've forgotten how to do that task. So find a creative way as a caregiver to get them to come along and follow you. Just start the task, begin the task, and include them in it, and you will be much more successful. It's a way to get around the no.
It brings me to, I think we talked about Teepa Snow when we chatted before, and
Right.
and she has a way when you're feeding someone, if this was a spoon and it comes up to their lip, it cues that behavior, that motion and that physical touch cues that behavior. It's almost finding a creative way to cue a behavior with visuals, with handing someone a hand towel to fold, with a cup of coffee leading into breakfast. It's such getting creative around to cue that behavior, cue that memory, to cue whatever you're trying to get is
Right.
super important.
Oh, it's so important. Cueing skills matter because early in the beginning of the memory loss, that is where they lose the ability to sequence from A to Z. We often think that that happens in the later stages of memory loss, especially Alzheimer's, but that's not the case. They generally start losing the ability to get from A to Z and whatever number there is in that sequence very early in the disease. And so when we start later, we don't realize that they have forgotten how to take a shower. They don't know how to turn the water on and off themselves. They don't understand why it gets hot and cold if you just turn it a little bit. They also cannot control their body temperature and their body heat. So we see a lot of these different symptoms show up, and the way that we can shorten the number of steps in any task by having the bathroom already ready with warm towels and the water on, and maybe you take them after they've had a big breakfast or a big lunch, and you say, hey, come with me, and then you get them in the bathroom and say, you had a lot to drink, why don't we sit down and maybe do our business? Once that happens, you could say, oh, it looks like you spilled something on your pants, why don't we get those pants off? Okay. And then you already have the room warmed up. You've already got the water going. And then you can say, well, while we're in here, why don't we just go ahead and jump in? I've got some warm towels. Would you like to feel it? So those cueing skills and the tactile feelings and the sensory skills of just our emotions, of the touch, of the steps that we can limit, all make everything so much easier for us as caregivers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love what you're talking about, cueing things. It's something that I don't really think about. You don't think about on a daily basis because it's so natural to you. But when someone needs a little extra help in that cueing, having all of those things lined up and being proactive around those activities can be super important and super helpful.
Right. And so it makes a big difference, and it helps us to keep that no away. Now, I'm going to change gears for just a minute, and you may say, well, this kind of doesn't make sense, but it will. So the next one is to ask yes or no questions if it's something that doesn't have to do with, per se, taking a bath or a shower or something that is important where we need to be more creative. But a person that has memory loss often cannot form a full cognitive thought. Okay, they can't answer something if it's an open-ended question. For example, if I said, Taylor, what would you like to have for lunch?
Oh, I want a hot dog and some.
You may not be able to say, it's a cold day, I'd like a cup of soup and maybe a grilled cheese sandwich. You wouldn't be able to say that. Okay. And so if you said, wow, it's a pretty chilly day, I've got some homemade chicken noodle soup I can make. Does that sound good? Then they can answer with a yes or no that is appropriate. And they have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. So it's chilly outside. Can I help you put a sweater on? It would be perfect to put a hat on as we go out today, don't you think? So I've been doing this for years and it rolls off my tongue, but I'd like people to practice. If you ask somebody an open-ended question and they can't answer, try a yes or no question.
Right. So what are your thoughts on giving someone an option? Now, I've heard this before where you can say, would you like chicken noodle soup or would you like tomato bisque or what have you, right? Giving someone two options to choose from. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love that. I think it's a great modification. It's a great alternative to be able to say, would you like a hamburger or does a sandwich sound good? Would you like to wear this blue shirt or this brown shirt? And, right. They can say yes or no to that. And certainly they can pick which one they want. And you could doll it up a little bit. Use some great adjectives. This blue shirt matches your eyes. Looks fabulous on you. Would you like to wear this today? Or does the brown shirt feel more appropriate? What would you like to wear?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So you can curb those a little bit, and I love choices. Just don't throw out too many. Maybe two.
Right. Not two choices to choose from. Yeah, and and go ahead. No, I think that's absolutely fantastic. It gives them, and what I was going to say is it gives you a toolbox. It gives our caregivers a toolbox to choose from. So you have these cueing behaviors, setting up the bathroom and things like that. You have this yes or no question that's very specific. If that doesn't quite work, you can pivot into an options, this or that type situation where it's just two options they can choose from. But any little tool I can pull out of my toolbox, if my loved one's not responding to what I'm doing in that moment, I can quick shift gears into something else.
That's exactly right. And be fluid, be creative. Don't put yourself in a box where you can only move, from left to right. Make sure you can maneuver throughout and modify as you need to. Your loved one may not have as much memory loss. Maybe you have someone in early stage where you can ask open-ended questions. And certainly we want to make sure their quality of life and their dignity is maintained. But these tips are to help you if the person that you love or are caring for, if they are in the mid stages and are not comprehending questions, they're not able to answer, and you can see the confusion in their eyes, this will help you enormously to make your day more modified for success.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. I'm absolutely thoroughly enjoying these absolutes. I think they're very actionable. I think people can really take action on these, which is really awesome. So let's move on to the next one. I'm excited.
Okay. So tell me more. Tell me more. So someone may think that there's another person in the opposite room and they come in and say, I hear somebody in the other room. Come here, see, it's bothering me. Instead of saying, no, there's no one there. That's not going to solve anything. It's an unmet need you have not resolved. So say, tell me more. Where are they? Can you show me? A yes or no question. So I'll give you an example. Excuse me. I'll give you an example. My mom would say, "There's that lady's in the room. She's in the mirror again. She's in there," and she would be scared. And so I'd say, "Well, Mom, show me. Where is she? Can you point her out to me?" So she'd walk me into the room, and we'd look in the mirror. And oftentimes, people with memory loss, as they are more progressed, they will not recognize themselves in a mirror. They won't recognize themselves in glass or in pictures and things like that. And that happens. They often go back in time and they don't recognize themselves. So I would say, "Well, Mom, she's friendly. Wave to her." And the woman in the mirror would wave to her. And I'd say, "See, she's smiling at you." So we would use that theory to have her guide me to where the disruption was. Another one is when someone passes away. And the person that has the progression of the disease is concerned about where they are. Where is my husband? Where is my wife? I want my mom or dad. And they are, older. They're elderly possibly. And those folks are long gone. They passed away many years ago. If we tell them that person has passed away, they are reliving it like it never happened. And so we never want to do that. So my tell me more theory is used in this way now, you would say, tell me more about your husband. Did you like the way he held your hand? What year did you get married? Do you know? What was your favorite thing about her? Were they romantic? What was something that they always did for you? Did they bring you flowers at holidays? If they're asking about parents and maybe they're in their 80s or what have you, and the parents are long gone, where did you grow up? If that person were here right now, what would you say to them? What would you like to say to them? Would you like to sit down and maybe have a cup of coffee with them or take a walk with them or sing songs with them? So find out what it is about that person that they're missing and expand on that instead of saying, oh, they passed away or, what have you. And it falls into the same category with them asking to go home. Home is not a physical place. Home is a place of the heart. So when they're asking to go home, they may mean their childhood home. They don't necessarily mean the home they are in, or home is a person that they are missing. So using that tell me more theory really helps them to expand on that sentiment that they have, that the love that they are longing for or missing can come into focus now, because we can help them bridge that gap by asking questions about that person.
What a great way to step into their world and step into the world that they're in that moment.
Right. I
think we can
makes a difference.
We can benefit from that, even talking and caring for people without Alzheimer's or dementia, stepping into their world. And really, I think that brings in a piece of empathy. It brings in a piece of just stepping in their shoes for just a moment and seeing where they are.
That's exactly right. And we can care better when we are in their world. If we're standing on the outside looking in, it's a little bit harder. But if you can step into their world, and that brings me to another one, confabulations, something that may not be true, that we don't want to say is a delusion, but you could say, if they're looking for a person who has passed away and cannot come, when's my husband going to be home? Well, we can't reach him right now. He's somewhere where we can't contact him, but if the opportunity presents itself, we'll try. They might say, I have to go pick up my children. Sometimes, especially women in memory units will say, I need to go and get my babies. I need to pick them up from the babysitter. Oh no, the babysitter called. She's going to keep them for the night. She's going to feed them dinner, give them a bubble bath, and she'll bring them back in the morning. It's all taken care of. I just forgot to tell you. Okay. So we can say things that are more general statements that don't say he'll be here in a while, because he won't. We're not going to say something like that, but we can say we can't reach him right now.
Right. And I think what you're kind of getting at too, that I want to point out, is it's a balance as well. And it takes practice. By no means are we saying this is something, I can just go do tomorrow and be really good at, and things like that. It takes practice. It takes a little time to figure out exactly what the right words are in that moment,
Right. And understanding, having some education around the brain itself and how the brain works. And when we have impairment, what will we see? Helps enormously in being ahead of the disease and understanding when your person does something that doesn't make sense. Maybe they're not recognizing a word, or losing their reading or writing skills, or losing their language or judgment or reasoning. When we understand these symptoms more, I think that helps us as caregivers to become more resilient. And resiliency is all about overcoming obstacles and adversity to find a positive outcome. And it's not just about the person with the diagnosis. It's a lot about the caregiver. You and I care deeply about caregivers. And we want to make sure that they're not overtaxed, that they're not stressed out, that they're not tired more than a couple of days in a row. They need respite. They need ways to work with their loved one where everyone feels understood and everyone feels like the compassion and the empathy is there. And there are days when our meters run low.
Of course.
But we
Absolutely.
always want to try to fill it back up. So pause to care. Think about
Pause
those
to care.
things, right? Yeah, even for
These are
yourself. Even for yourself.
absolutely. Of
Nobody
course.
knows the struggles that caregivers have, and they often don't share. They're warriors, they're superheroes, and they're always trying to do whatever they need to do on their own without anyone else's help. But when somebody lends you a helping hand and they say, "Come with me, I'll teach you, I can help you with this," please take that lifeline, because we want you to be okay as well. There's a high statistic of caregivers who get sick themselves and then cannot care for the people that they love. So it's important that they take care of themselves.
Yeah, so for sure. I absolutely agree with you. This has been so great. We're looking at what a caregiver can own, right?
Right.
Not only caring for someone with Alzheimer's or dementia, but also caring for themselves.
Absolutely. And just your emotional well-being is so important. And so the last one of the absolutes I want to talk about is the time management for activities of daily living. So if that person is not in a good mood, if they're not in a good place at that moment in time when you need something done, I'm asking you to think about doing it at a different time. Try not to put some action into place when that person is not ready or willing to do it. So if you can have them in a good mental space, it will help you enormously. And just like we did with our kids when they were younger, you might have to add more time. If you have appointments in the morning that you need to go to, make sure that you start an hour earlier than you thought you were going to need to. So just making sure that we take time. This will lower your stress as a caregiver, which is important. That's something you own. You have control over that situation. And so today, I hope that I could bring you some strategies that help you to understand that if you just put a few simple tactics in place, you can change the frustration of any symptom that you see as a problem and make it more enjoyable and make it an easier reaction with the person that you're working with.
I think it's wonderful. I think that's wonderful. And I think what we'll do here is we're going to share this out to our network as well, because we want as many people to hear these things, because it all goes into it. It can all be put in your little toolbox that you can grab whenever you need something. You can try something new and you can pivot as you need to. And I think these action items, these absolutes are fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Taylor. I really like teaching families how to live with this disease and make sure that everyone feels like their needs and their wants are met. And it's not just about the person. The caregiver also needs that same consideration. And anything we can do to make their journey a little bit better, to me, is worth its weight in gold.
Me too. So Joe, with that, I am a teacher at heart as well. Love that. So tell us a little bit about how people can find you, get connected with you, and Summit Resilience Training.
Absolutely. My website really is a virtual office. I have a Knowledge Center tab. And when you click on that Knowledge Center, I have 45 pieces of information that you can access easily, from bathing without a battle to ways to avoid scams to learning about what the various diseases are, how to hire a home care company or how to look for a care community, all those types of things. And so if you get on that tab, Knowledge Center, you can find plenty of information. I also have a podcast, Dementia Resilience with Jill Lawrence, started as a radio show, and I'm in my 4th year, and you can access that through my Summit Resilience Training as well, if you need to, or on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, a lot of different mediums. And I have listeners in all 50 states and 54 countries. And I provide strategies and technique shows as well as resources every week. And I drop my shows on Tuesday. And one last thing, I teach classes for the University of Colorado Hospital Neurology Department for both the Movements Disorder and the Memories Disorders Clinic. And the Memories Disorders Clinic, we have the classes every month. So every other month, there's a beginner class, and it's not your basic Alzheimer's beginners class. It is a class that goes into the depths of the brain and how the brain works. And I talk about how you can manage with the impairment when you are seeing it in a much more comprehensive way that will make you less stressed and the person more successful. And so I'd love for you to get on those classes. They are on the first Wednesday of every month from 1:30 to 3:30, and you can sign up and access it through my website, Summit Resilience Training. And then I also have classes for people with Parkinson's every quarter, but all that information is on my website.
Perfect. That is so great. It sounds like your website is the place to go to find some of these awesome, brilliant resources. I posted it here in the chat here so people can go and connect with you there for those classes, your podcast, everything that you're doing. And I also want to, before we end today, is say thank you for the work that you do for our caregivers, for our older adults, for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. It is important work and it's valued. So thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. And right back at you. This Facebook Live is absolutely beautiful. And I love that you're reaching out to caregivers everywhere. I lovingly call my listeners Caregiver Nation. So now all of you are part of that. But I love it. We can work together in the future because I think we can build something great here.
Perfect. Well, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in for our Caring Counts Live episode this Wednesday. We'll see you next Caring Counts Live episode in 2 Wednesdays. We'll see you then. We hope you have a great week. Have a great Thanksgiving. We'll talk to you later.